Welcome to the undocumented world. Today, we're going to talk about the story of the world's #1 hacker, Kevin Mitnick. In court, the prosecutor once accused him, saying that he had the capability to start a nuclear war, and all he needed was a public telephone. He could allegedly hack into the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, by whistling into the phone and even launch nuclear missiles. Although Kevin later said on a TV show that he had never heard of such absurd technology and even laughed in court, the judge was ultimately convinced by the prosecutor's testimony and sentenced him to solitary confinement, with no unnecessary contact with the outside world. After his release, let's take a look at a small trick Kevin demonstrated on a TV show. Kevin handed a seemingly ordinary mobile phone charging cable to the host and asked, "If you were in a hurry to charge your phone and found this cable on a colleague's desk, would you plug it into your computer to charge?" The host replied, "I know I shouldn't pick up a USB drive off the ground and plug it in, but is there something wrong with this cable?" "I think I would." "Can you hack my computer with just a cable?" the host asked. Kevin smiled without answering and took out a remote control, saying, "This has a range of 300 feet. All one need to do is press the button anytime you plug in the charging cable. Watch the bottom left corner." "In just 3 seconds," he said. "Now, look at my computer. I can already remotely control your computer, and I can even turn on your camera and see what you look like." The host was stunned, and Kevin continued, "Next, I just need to leave this cable near your desk or, better yet, intercept the package of your new phone, open it, replace the cable, and reseal it with a hairdo. Then I can pose as a delivery person and give it to you. You wouldn't suspect the original charging cable, right? This is the world's #1 hacker." What's terrifying isn't just his technical skills, but also the method of subtly manipulating others' behavior, which is known as social engineering. This was what the FBI feared the most back then. For example, Kevin often disguised himself as a mail carrier to enter company buildings, pretending to deliver a letter to the front desk. While the receptionist was filling out the form, he would carefully observe the ID badge on their chest. Then, he would go home and use Photoshop to create an identical badge for himself. In his autobiography, Kevin mentioned that in 99% of cases, people only glance at the badge, so it just needs to look plausible. With the fake badge, Kevin would follow IT department employees out through the back door for a smoke break. After smoking, he would linger behind, and someone would politely hold the door open for him, allowing him to enter the IT department. He could even hold the door open for his accomplices, who would then install malware, control computers, eavesdrop on conversations, activate cameras, steal passwords, and infiltrate core servers. In one instance, he discovered that millions of credit card transactions were being processed on a server. This is how Kevin hacked into a major telecommunications company, stealing over 20,000 credit card accounts, including those of some very wealthy and elite individuals. In his autobiography, Kevin said that if he wanted, he could use a different credit card every day for the rest of his life, but he never intended to use them. What he sought was the thrill of breaching the company's security, much like a chess player who plays just to win. Why is this so hard to understand? Indeed, when the FBI caught him, no prosecutor could charge him with using any of the credit card data because he hadn't used any of it. This is Kevin. If he had wanted, he could have made hundreds of millions of dollars, but he didn't. He was just a curious child, doing it all for fun. So, what kind of genius and dodgeball story is this? Let's start from 1963 in Los Angeles. That year, young Kevin was born into an unhappy family. His mother worked as a server in various fast food chains, and his father was reportedly a salesperson at a large company. When Kevin was 3 years old, his parents divorced. In his autobiography, Kevin described how he moved frequently, which meant he had no friends or playmates. He later realized that the frequent moves were due to his mother's 3 marriages and several boyfriends, some of whom were abusive. Kevin suspected that these experiences contributed to his disdain for authority. Kevin said when he was 10, a girl who had a crush on him often invited him to her house to learn magic tricks. He enjoyed it so much that he fell in love with magic. Although he couldn't afford the props, magic introduced him to the art of deception. One day, a bus driver told Kevin that he had recently discovered a police frequency on his Motorola radio that allowed him to listen to the police captain. Young Kevin thought this was incredibly cool and showered the driver with praise and admiration. The driver, an amateur radio enthusiast, showed Kevin his radio after work and demonstrated how to make free calls using the police frequency through an automatic compensation service. This fascinated Kevin, and he started attending night classes on radio technology, where he learned Morse code and the principles of radio. When the night school teacher finally noticed the young listener, he was amazed. Kevin, at just 12 years old, had passed the official radio license exam on his first try. The teacher exclaimed, "Oh my God!" But soon, Kevin began skipping school to spend his days at a radio store. However, the store was farther from home, and each bus ride cost 25 cents. So Kevin came up with a clever plan. One day, he sat next to the bus driver and said, "I'm working on a school project and need to punch some interesting patterns on cardboard. Could you tell me where I can buy a ticket puncher?" The driver, happy to help, gave him the address. Kevin then pestered his mother for $15 to buy the puncher. Next, he needed blank transfer tickets, so he followed the bus to the cleaning facility. Sure enough, there were piles of blank tickets in the trash. With the puncher and the tickets, Kevin could now ride the bus for free. In his autobiography, Kevin reflected, "Did this get me into trouble? My mom thought I was smart, and my dad said it showed initiative." The bus drivers laughed it off. Though innocent, it set me on a different path. At 13, the age when Jewish children have their bar mitzvah, Kevin was no exception. His mother sent him to a Hebrew school to learn religious songs. However, Kevin would hide books on radio and underground technology under his songbook and study them secretly. When it came time for the exam, Kevin instinctively mimicked the rabbi's accent and gestures, putting the teacher in a position where failing him would seem like an affront to religion. Although he didn't sing well, he passed. His parents, upon learning this, scolded him, but he later realized that this was an early form of social engineering. He had been practicing it intuitively, using calculated methods to control others and make them do things they normally wouldn't, without arousing any suspicion. Through his exposure to underground literature, Kevin met many phone freaks, a group of people who were passionate about using various old network technologies to hack into telephone systems. These people were all highly skilled, but when Kevin joined, he started innovating and upgrading their hacker techniques using social engineering. For example, once he pretended to be an internal engineer and called the telephone switchboard saying, "I'm Jack from the non-public telephone directory. I need to speak with one of your supervisors." When the supervisor came on the line, Kevin asked, "Have you received the memo about the change in our directory number?" The supervisor checked and said no. Kevin then told him, "You will use 9,962 for the directory," but the supervisor responded, "But we've always used 5, and it works fine. Why change it?" That was enough. Kevin got the 5 non-public number. With the internal directory number, he posed as various identities to get an employee's ID. He then used the internal directory to find the numbers and addresses of celebrities like Roger Moore, James Garner, and Bruce Springsteen. He would call them and play pranks like saying, "Hey Bruce, how are you? Did your wife get you last time?" Kevin's pranks became more elaborate, even connecting celebrities to each other while he listened and laughed. During one of these calls, a switchboard operator became suspicious. Kevin pretended to guide the operator through a series of steps, making the operator nervous and compliant. That night, Kevin received a radio signal from someone who called himself Lewis, saying, "Nice job, kid. I heard everything. Here's my number, let's talk." Lewis became Kevin's best friend, and together they took their pranks to new heights. For instance, they hacked into McDonald's PA system and, when a police car drove up for an order, announced, "Sorry, we don't serve the police here." Pacific Bell, now part of ADT, was one of North America's top communication companies. They had a COSMOS data center where much of the continent's communication data was processed. Hacking into COSMOS was the holy grail for phone freaks. Although Kevin had already hacked into COSMOS, he didn't want to share it with many people. Once he shared a backdoor to a small company system, but Lewis's girlfriend, jealous that Kevin was spending so much time with her boyfriend, retaliated by using the backdoor to make all the company's printers print. Kevin Mitnick was here, until they ran out of paper. This almost got Kevin sent to juvenile detention. So, Kevin generally didn't boast about his skills, but during a phone-free gathering, a friend named Ross suggested, the COSMOS data center is nearby. Kevin, show us how you can hack in using social engineering. Lewis trusted Ross and thought he was skilled. They decided to buy flashlights and gloves and go through the data center's dumpster. It was late at night, and they found nothing useful. Kevin smiled and said, they threw away the useless stuff. Follow me. Kevin walked right through the front door and the security guard just asked, where are you going? Sign in. Kevin signed in for room 108, which was the COSMOS room. The guard didn't even check their IDs, and they walked in. Inside, they found drawers full of memos and even a password list. They carried out several boxes of files, and the guard didn't ask any questions. They planned to copy the documents and return them, but no copy shop was open at 2 a.m. The files were taken home, and once again, Lewis's girlfriend leaked the information. Kevin was arrested and sentenced to 90 days of psychological evaluation. The doctors told him, you're just addicted to hacking, not a criminal. Try to overcome this addiction. The diagnosis was essentially internet addiction. Though there were no online games back then, Kevin was addicted to the thrill of pranks in the digital world. The doctor's advice helped, and after leaving juvenile detention, Kevin finished high school and enrolled in a technical college where he met his future wife, Bonnie. They moved in together after graduation, and Kevin's life seemed to be on track. From 16 to 22, he continued his pranks but stayed within the law. However, at 23, Kevin fell into a trap. He was trying to save $3,000 for a wedding with Bonnie and was working on a sales system for a deli. One day, Bonnie called in a panic, saying, our house was burglarized and your computer was stolen. Huh? Kevin rushed home to check and found that although his computer was missing, the money he had hidden in the closet for their wedding was still there, neatly arranged on the dining table. Next to the money was a search warrant from the Santa Cruz Police Department. It turned out that a software company in Santa Cruz had set a trap for Kevin. The company's security consultant, after failing to stop Kevin's repeated intrusions, had befriended him. They communicated through file messages and became close. Kevin, known for his loyalty in the hacker community, saw that the consultant had created a high-privilege account for him, leading Kevin to believe the consultant was not malicious. He continued to use the account to learn the company's software development techniques, just as he had once audited radio courses at night school with no ill intent. When the truth came out, Kevin realized he had been duped. The company sued him for $1 million damages, but Kevin argued that he had only used the account to learn and had not downloaded or altered any data. To explain this in court, he needed a lawyer, and the $3,000 he had saved for the wedding was just enough for a retainer. His mother and grandmother helped him financially, and Bonnie stood by him, marrying him even though her parents didn't attend the wedding. She reassured him, everything will be okay. With the help of his lawyer, the company agreed to drop the lawsuit if Kevin would explain how he had hacked into their system. Kevin did so, and life returned to normal. The deli he worked for started introducing him to new clients, and everything seemed to be improving. During this time, Kevin gained weight and became a bit chubby. However, a few years later, another crisis struck. Kevin had a black hat friend named Lenny, who often partnered with him on hacking adventures. Kevin was usually the lead, while Lenny provided support. Lenny, feeling competitive, frequently challenged Kev to see who could hack into a system first, with a $150 bet. Lenny always lost, sometimes paying up, sometimes not. Kevin laughed it off, but Lenny grew increasingly frustrated. Finally, during one of these challenges, Kevin discovered he had been betrayed. "Who sold my plan to the FBI?" Surrounded by federal agents, Kevin raised his hands and turned to see Lenny, who was dancing in circles, celebrating as if at a funeral. This led to the courtroom scene where the prosecutor claimed Kevin could launch nuclear missiles by whistling into a public phone. In his autobiography, Kevin believed the prosecutor's exaggerated claims were due to the ADS fear of cybersecurity, but he never explicitly addressed whether he had actually hacked NORAD. Perhaps he did, as the prosecutor's detailed explanation of modems and telephone networks convinced the judge to sentence him to solitary confinement. In prison, Kevin's days were difficult. He counted down the days, hoping to serve his time and start anew. When he was finally released, he found that Bonnie had been unfaithful. Kevin hacked into Bonnie's answering machine and discovered she was in love with his friend Louis. The betrayals left Kevin disoriented and depressed. He said, "I was at rock bottom, on the verge of a breakdown." Bonnie moved in with Louis, and Kevin turned to the gym, spending entire days there to vent his frustrations. In 1991, at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Kevin had an idea to create a cloak of invisibility, because his internet addiction had resurfaced. He was still on bail and forbidden from any hacking, but he thought, if one could change the electronic serial number ESN of a cell phone by pressing a few keys, that would be perfect. "The ESN is the only identifier the FBI uses to track me, and if I keep changing it, they'll always find someone else." He called Novotel, the cell phone manufacturer, and posed as Mike Pico, a name he had seen at the Novotel booth. A manager named Kumamoto answered. Kevin said he was doing a live demonstration at the show and needed to change the ESN. Initially, Kumamoto was hesitant, saying it was prohibited, but under Kevin's persuasion, he agreed to send a new firmware chip. Kevin gave the address of a nearby hotel and soon received the chip. He then pretended to be a customer service manager and visited several local cell phone stores, claiming to need the ESNs of recently sold phones for quality control. With the chip and the SNS, Kevin followed Kumamoto's instructions, unsuccessfully changed the ESNs. This cloak of invisibility was now in place, and Kevin had obtained it effortlessly. During this period, a mysterious hacker named Eric entered Kevin's life through a friend's introduction. Kevin found Eric to be odd. He never gave out his phone number or email and always spoke in a formal, almost police-like manner. This made Kevin suspect that Eric might be an FBI informant. What followed was the legendary story of Kevin investigating Eric and ultimately reverse hacking the FBI network to monitor them. This story is not about sophisticated hacking code, but rather a masterful display of social engineering. Kevin discovered that Eric was a fictional identity created by the FBI using the name of a deceased infant. He then methodically exposed the federal agents behind Eric and even used the FBI's methods to create a false identity for himself, using another deceased infant's information. With this new identity, Kevin went into hiding, leaving his mother and grandmother behind, and took jobs at various large companies in Denver and Seattle. By day, he was a diligent computer administrator, and by night, he was a legendary hacker, ghosting in undoubt of some of the most secure networks. He hacked into Motorola, Nokia, and even Sun Microsystems, a company renowned for its cybersecurity, which had roots in Stanford University, the birthplace of modern computer networking. Kevin also infiltrated the archives of Portland University and used the FBI's network to create over 13,000 virtual identities, treating the FBI system as his personal playground. By the end of 1994, Kevin was one of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives. The FBI was determined to catch him, and theoretically they should have been unable to do so because Kevin had already turned the tables and was monitoring them. However, Kevin inadvertently crossed someone he shouldn't have, Tsutomu Shimomura, the son of a Nobel Prize-winning chemist and a brilliant computer expert who decided to help the FBI catch Kevin. At the time, Tsutomu was working on cracking the OKI series of cell phones, developing a feature to change the electronic serial numbers ESS and S via the keypad. Intrigued, Kevin hacked into Tsutomu's computer, downloading his cracking software and other sensitive files. This infuriated Tsutomu, who was one of the few people capable of detecting such intrusions. Tsutomu began investigating, but the intruder left no trace, suggesting a top-tier hacker. In a twist of fate, during their cat-and-mouse game, Tsutomu stumbled upon a peculiar sequence of events. Some say Tsutomu had already anticipated Kevin's honeypot trap, while others believe it was just a coincidence. As Tsutomu's investigation hit a dead end, the stolen files appeared on the server of a technology forum called Devil. Kevin, in his autobiography, admitted that this was likely due to his oversight. He had hidden the files on the Devil server, thinking no one would know he had already compromised it. The compressed files were 140 MB, a massive size at the time. Kevin overlooked a disk alert program on the Devil server which notified the administrator when such a large file was uploaded. The administrator, upon reviewing the files, found a strange word, Tsutomu, which was Tsutomu's Japanese name. The forum administrator informed Tsutomu, who, with FBI authorization, could access any network resources to track Kevin. With this led, Tsutomu used a custom program to compare all modem connection data from various telecom companies. He discovered that 2 modems in Denver, North Carolina had accessed the files on the German server. Although Kevin had changed the corresponding phone numbers, Tsutomu, familiar with Kevin's tactics, used several custom programs to analyze data from wireless base stations in Denver and North Carolina. He narrowed down Kevin's location to Raleigh, North Carolina. Without hesitation, Tsutomu and FBI agents flew to Raleigh, driving a specially equipped car with radio equipment. They tracked a fleeting signal and eventually pinpointed Kevin's apartment. They did not immediately move but continued to monitor the area. When Tsutomu heard Kevin's voice on the radio, he instructed the FBI to make the arrest. On February 15, 1995, at 1:30 a.m., Kevin heard a knock on his door. When he asked who it was, the response came from outside. In court, Kevin told Tsutomu, "I admire your skills," and nodded in respect. The entire capture process was detailed in a book written by Tsutomu Shimomura. In the book, Tsutomu wrote, "I glanced back at him and simply nodded, as if there was nothing more to say." In our contest, he had clearly lost, but strangely, seeing him being taken to prison, I felt neither good nor bad, just a bit unsatisfied. This was not a perfect resolution, not because I believe the notion that Kevin was an innocent explorer of cyberspace with no economic motives for his crimes, but because in many ways, he seemed to be a special case. Tsutomu's reflections highlight the complexity of Kevin's situation. While Kevin's actions were undeniably illegal and caused significant disruption, his motivations and the methods he used set him apart from typical criminals. Tsutomu's ambivalence reflects the broader societal and legal challenges in understanding and addressing the unique nature of cybercrime, especially in its early days. The case of Kevin Mitnick remains a fascinating and thought-provoking example of the intersection of technology, law, and human behavior. This was Kevin's 6th arrest, and he was well aware of the stakes. I have not seen any evidence suggesting that his activities had a higher moral purpose or were driven by innocent curiosity. As the story at the beginning suggests, Kevin accessed systems and information, but did not use what he found for illegal or profitable activities. How should such actions be judged? The prosecution, working with incomplete cybercustody laws at the time, claimed that Kevin caused $300 million in economic damage, calculated based on the cost of developing the source code. Kevin found this absurd, comparing it to demanding that someone who stole a can of Coke pay for the entire development and protection costs of the Coca-Cola secret formula. Meanwhile, in 1997, protests calling for Kevin's release sprang up around the world, arguing that the court had treated him unfairly. Finally, on January 21, 2000, Kevin was released. He said, "My case was one of curiosity. Although he was prohibited from using phones and computers for 3 years after his release, he soon found himself invited to speak as a security expert for the U.S. government. He emphasized, the weakest link in computer security is the human element. Human nature is easily exploitable. Companies and governments spend millions on firewalls, encryption, and other security measures, but it's all for naught if the people managing these systems are vulnerable. This insight was profoundly impactful. Kevin quickly became a sought-after cybersecurity consultant, appearing on various shows to promote cybersecurity awareness. He even started his own YouTube channel, where he occasionally demonstrated alarming hacking techniques to raise everyday vigilance. Kevin's journey from a notorious hacker to a respected cybersecurity expert is a testament to the power of redemption and the importance of understanding and addressing the human element in technology. His story continues to inspire and educate, highlighting the critical role of social engineering in cybersecurity and the need for robust human-focused security measures. Kevin then became a security expert and founded his own security consulting company. This time, everything truly started to look up. In 2015, he even rekindled love at a security conference in Singapore, where he met his new wife, Kimberly. However, this brief period of happiness was short-lived. In 2022, Kevin was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. After a 14-month battle with the disease, he passed away on July 16, 2023, at the age of 59. At the time of his death, Kimberly was pregnant. She said calmly, "Our child will know you. I believe he or she will be a mini version of you." This is the story of Kevin Mitnick. 4 days ago marked the 1-year anniversary of his passing. Some say that over the course of his life he transformed from the world's #1 black hat hacker to the world's top security expert. He changed people's understanding of cybersecurity and made us more aware of the dangers of impersonation. According to statistics, in 2023, Americans lost $10 billion to fraud, with impersonation being the leading method. It seems that social engineering is a mandatory lesson for every modern internet user. The most important firewall is not on our computers but in our minds. Thank you for listening to this story. See you next video.